For analysis, let's turn now to Dan Arbell, who's a scholar in residence with the Department of History at American University. Dan, thanks for your time. Now, this bill perhaps seems on the surface like a technical tweak to its court system, but it's been met with the largest protests in Israeli history. Why?
Because, Sally, this goes right to the heart of Israeli democracy and the checks and balances system. This alters the balance of power between the three branches of government, judiciary, executive, and legislative, and gives the government enormous power and weakens the Supreme Court in a strong way, not allowing the court to exercise judicial review, not allow it to rule based on what it deems to be reasonable or not reasonable, and so on and so forth. And this is just the beginning. So this is very much an assault on Israeli democracy as we know it until now.
So the government says the reforms serve to strengthen democracy, arguing the Supreme Court has accrued too much power over politics in recent decades. Give us a sense of how the system is built in Israel compared to somewhere like the US, where the constitution is, wedded into the way government happens.
So Israel does not have a constitution. It has a set of basic laws which govern the system, which set the rules of the game. And so, while there has been support for some reforms in the judiciary or in the way the interaction between the different branches, the checks and balances work, then what this government, far-right government, is doing is changing the rules of the game that have been in place for 75 years, and are, very much changing it, and are trying to insert new rules that change the very nature of Israeli democracy. Again, judicial review was something that the Supreme Court has had the authority to enact. Now it will be damaged or undermined. Rejecting different appointments of high officials, rejecting decisions by the executive which it deems unconstitutional, and so on. These will suffer a setback as a result of this judicial overhaul plan of the Netanyahu government.
The reforms have polarised Israel, triggering one of the most serious domestic crises in the country's history. Talk of civil war seems to be in the crowds. That's from the report that we heard in the last few hours. Do you think it could come to that?
I hope and pray it will not come to that, but seriously, there is a serious split in Israeli societies between those who are opposing the moves of the government, those who are supporting it, and the government is inciting and is creating, contributing to greater gaps between parts of society. Israeli society as a whole, for years, has been very fragile, very delicate, and the relationships inside and the dynamics inside the society have always been something that it was held together, but very fragile lines. Now this reform, this judicial overhaul plan, threatens to tear these lines, and if parties don't step up and reach some sort of accommodation that will allow some sort of agreement between the sides, then we may slip into a scenario of a civil war, which is, God forbid, something very, very dangerous and threatening.
All right, Dan Arbell, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thanks for your time. Scholar in residence at American University.
Thank you.